And thanks for joining us this afternoon. First up, a potential debt restructuring by Ghana is likely to take the next 6 to 9 months. That's according to Singapore-based finance and market research firm Red Intelligence. This may, however, take place after an economic program has been secured by the country from the International Monetary Fund. There is more in this report.
The report projected that Ghana may run out of liquidity by the second half of next year without the assistance of the International Monetary Fund. Also, because the nation has lost market access, it explained that the Finance Ministry is expected to engage with external bondholders in the next few weeks on the country's debt restructuring. However, there are likely to be two committees taking shape in Ghana's Eurobonds. Red Intelligence also pointed out that at least 4 different advisory firms are working with the government on economic policy and debt management in the context of the sovereign talks with the IMF. However, it says the firms are working with the government on an informal basis as the mandates have not yet been formalized.
Joining us on Zoom to discuss is Kwawu, who's Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School. Thanks for your time this afternoon. So, Red Intelligence gave an indication that 4 different advisory firms are working with government on an economic policy and debt management in the context of the International Monetary Fund talks. Now, again, giving hint of a potential debt restructuring likely to take the next 6 to 9 months after a deal is reached. What do you make of this reporting?
The situation that we find ourselves in right now, and then the reports that we are getting from credible research institutions outside the country, to me, is a bit worrying. It's worrying because if the country Ghana is going for a bailout from the International Monetary Fund, and we can't find any firm in Ghana to partner government to advise in the debt restructuring or the bailout and debt management that we have with the government. And therefore, we have to go for 4 firms from outside the country to do this particular one is worrying. During the COVID pandemic, we gathered scientists from Ghana. We did not go for scientists from outside the country to advise government on the things that they are supposed to do. And their findings and the data that they have drive how government responded to the issues at stake. In Ghana, we have accounting firms, financial firms, other financial institutions that we have in the country. Why do we have to go for firms outside the country? We are looking down upon our people. That is very worrying. Secondly, the debt restructuring. Yes, debt restructuring will come in when we are locked out of the international financial market. Once we are locked out from the international financial market, it's going to be very difficult getting the needed assistance. And we must make sure that we sustain our debt levels in order not to plunge the country into further debt. And hence, the need for IMF to do the debt sustainability analysis. The report of that we are yet to get. But once the international firms, Fitch has said that, yes, there is likely that we would have a debt restructuring. We heard the president telling us that there will not be any haircut. The debt restructuring, to me, is not only about haircuts, but then there are other options that we are not looking at, where there will be a plea for extension of the period within which we can pay the debt. Some of the debt, for example, the 2015 Euro bond that we went in for, that will mature in 2030. The interest rate on some of these debts are very high. We have 10.75% on the debt. And that debt was guaranteed by IMF. That says that if Ghana defaults in payment of this debt, we are going to pay $400 million on that particular amount. And aside that, Ghana has not defaulted, that debt we are paying it, the interest is outrageous, very high. There are law firms that advise on that particular one. And you realize that we are paying more than necessary as a country on some of these things. So who advised and who gave the authorization for us to go for an expensive debt we have as a country? That is not a way to go. And so if we, in our own country, we cannot use our own people, the finance professionals that we have, the economists that we have in our country, but we have to go and pick people from outside the country to do this advice for us, where are we going? And the question is, whether are we drifting as a country?
Okay. You raised the point about Fitch. I just want to update our audience a bit more. So rating agency Fitch says it sees more than 50% chance of Ghana defaulting on its debt repayment. According to the rating agency, the country's sovereign credit rating may face another downgrade closer to default if talks with the International Monetary Fund for a $3 billion package leads to debt restructuring. And you raised the point as to whether President Akufo-Addo was correct in saying that the domestic debt will not face any haircut. My point is, why would the president not be straightforward with this, seeing this report that we have from Fitch?
Yeah, the president at a point in time is supposed to be diplomatic. So the president was diplomatic because the financial situation that we find in the market, the speculators are making speculations in order to profit from it, to keep the market afloat and not to disrupt the market. The president is saying there will not be any haircut. Now, already we have some investment banks in the country that have issued statements to their investors telling them that they should not withdraw their investment. If they withdraw their investment, it means that they are going to lose some interest, and in some instances, the principal on the investment. And there are some statements that have also come up saying that the valuation of the investment should be at the fair market value. So if they are using fair value to value the investment, it means that all investment will be valued at the current rate at which they are being sold in the market. If the investments such as bonds are sold in the market at the current rate, and the rates we know are lower now, it means that if you want to liquidate your investment or sell it out, you are going to incur a loss. That loss that you are incurring in itself is a haircut that you are getting. And so there are the other option that is available to government to explore is to ask for an extension in the period of payment where no interest can be paid on this debt. Government can also ask for debt relief from the IMF and World Bank in these instances. But these institutions, they are not Father Christmases, and they are not doing it for Ghana free of charge, where the World Bank has guaranteed that government is going to pay the interest on the Euro bond that was taken in 2015. IMF, World Bank charges Ghana interest on that particular guarantee, and we have to pay for it. So everything is cost. And we need our own people to have their homeworks done before they go to these institutions to get the rates that we want to get. If you are going for $1 billion and the interest rate is about 10% on that 1 billion, that is a high interest rate. And you see a lot of people going to buy those bonds because they are going to be profitable. And so the president was trying to be diplomatic in the issue of talking about haircuts, but that is already happening in the market if you decide to take your investment before the day of maturity.
One more minute on this conversation. We expect the IMF team to meet with government officials to continue with the talks next week. And the majority leader in Parliament has given indication that the budget presentation may delay. So what kind of budget works around this time? What do you advise?
You see, whatever it is, we should not, as a country, depend solely on the IMF to come and rescue us. The deal with the IMF, we have been told, is going to take some time. Probably if the IMF is coming next week, and next week we are already getting to the time that we are supposed to read the budget. We had information about the data that is submitted to IMF, and they have questionable issues with the data. So we need to prepare our own budget that will develop the local economy, budget that will ensure that we have import substitution industries that will be able to produce and add value to the things that we are producing in our country. Foodstuffs that we produce in our country must be boosted, supported by government. Of course, when we are talking about support, it's not free support, it's not free money that will be given to anyone. It's money that will be given, but the interest rate on this amount of money will be lower. We need budgets that will ensure that our agricultural sector is more productive in the things that we do. We have a firm that has been established in Ghana that is supposed to buy produce and keep them for some time. And when the market is down, they release these things to the market. What happens to this particular company that we're talking about now?
All right.
We don't even hear about the company. The agric minister is telling us that they are going to buy produce and send to the ministry in Accra to be sold to the market at lower prices. What kind of thinking are we having as a country? What kind of policy are we having as a country? The ministry does not belong to the minister alone. He, of course, is the Minister of Agriculture for Ghana and not his house.
Sarah, we'd have to leave it here. Thank you so much. I appreciate your insights and perspective this afternoon. Sarah Kwawu, he is a senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School. So let's talk about the 2023 budget that will be presented to Parliament later this month. We are getting an indication it will be heavy on fiscal consolidation and value for money projects. Now, this is what Joy Business has picked up from persons working on the document. George Affe has more on next year's budget that will be heavily influenced by the International Monetary Fund.
We understand that next year's budget will come up with policies that seeks to check the rising expenditure with further cuts in government spending. It will also outline measures that would help to drastically improve revenue to make up for some of the very important spending that cannot be cut due to the rigidities in the country's budget. Another area that will get some serious attention is the country's debt stock, which has reached more than 400 billion Ghana cedis ending July this year. Government will again come up with programs that would help deal with the fiscal deficit as well as debt accumulation. Minister of State at the Finance Ministry Charles Edubwahin, at a recent engagement in Washington, D.C., on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank annual meetings, also added that there will be value for money in the 2023 budget. Based on what we have picked up, it is still not out of place to describe the 2023 budget as an austere one, but maybe it is still early days yet in terms of the final outcome of the 2023 budget. This because the current negotiations with the IMF would influence the final text of next year's budget. But there are still some questions on the minds of Ghanaians. That is, when will this budget be presented? When will the current negotiations with the IMF be concluded? Will it be before the end of this year? And will it be a staff agreement or a program agreement?
All right, so we begin our look ahead to the 2023 budget presentation with a forum put together by Joy Business. It is dubbed Ghana's Alien Economy 2023 Budget to the Rescue. Well, joining me is Joy Business editor Charles Nixon to throw more light on tonight's event. So let's begin, Charles, with why the 2023 budget is so crucial.
Well, Daryl, we all know that the economy has experienced very challenging times this year. It all started from somewhere the latter part of the first quarter of this year, where we all realized that the Russia-Ukraine war is a shock that was impacting on the Ghanaian economy, and therefore inflation, interest rate, the exchange rate started having challenges. And so this next year's budget is very critical in terms of turning the economy of the country around. And we all know that the government had to seek support from the International Monetary Fund, which they had no option but to do that, to bring credibility as well as also boost the country's balance of payment in order for us to be able to trade and also ensure that our currency or our cedi is very strong against the major foreign currencies, especially the dollar. So next year's budget is very crucial because the budget is expected to turn around the economy. This year's budget was actually hinged on fiscal consolidation, but many will say that we have not been able to achieve the fiscal consolidation because we have missed a lot of targets, and one critical target is the electronic transaction levy. We all know the amount of money that has been mobilized so far, which is nothing good to write home about. And therefore, next year's budget is very critical in turning around the Ghanaian economy. Next year's budget will be hinged on an IMF program. And we all know what an IMF program brings about, conditionalities. We have no option but to go strictly according to the program in order to bring hope to the Ghanaian economy going forward.
And so amid the economic crisis and the talks with the International Monetary Fund, there are many expectations of the 2023 budget. So exactly. What areas are our panel going to explore tonight?
Well, our panel members are supposed to offer solutions in the area of fiscal strategy, in terms of how the country will be able to generate enough revenue, in terms of being prudent in spending. Expenditure has become a major problem. We've spent beyond our means. We are spending almost our entire tax revenue to service interest and take care of consumption, which is not good for the country because you need some excess funds to undertake capital projects or investment, which is a necessary tool in terms of development as far as every economy is concerned. So the panel members drawn from academia, the business community, and other stakeholders are expected to discuss issues with regard to expectations for next year in line with the IMF program that we are going to experience, hopefully by the end of the first quarter of next year. So we have speakers like Professor Peter Korte from the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. We also have Dr. Priscilla Chumesi-Bafo, who is a senior lecturer with the Economics Department of the University of Ghana. We also have the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, president of the Association of Ghana Industries. We also have the chief executive officer of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We also have other speakers, brilliant speakers who will be joining us
in the conversation
on Zoom.
And it's going to be moderated by Benjamin Akapo and Winston Amwa.
Absolutely.
So it promises to be an exciting conversation. So this is going to be live on Joy FM.
Exactly. It will start exactly at 7 p.m. and it will end at 9 p.m. It will be live on Joy 99.7 FM as well as JoyNews.
Wow. That's tonight.
Absolutely.
A pre-budget discussion, what to expect amid the crisis. Thanks so much, Charles Dixon-Bois, his editor at Joy Business. We'll also speak about the economic crisis. The United Nations is predicting that Ghana and other African countries may not be able to pay up their public debts unless some drastic measures are taken to reform the global financial system. According to a recent report released by the UNDP, Africa is facing a double crisis with the combined effects of the war in Ukraine and the COVID-19 pandemic. The document further stated that the continent may be caught up in the cycle of dependency unless some remedial measures are taken. Speaking on foreign affairs on the JoyNews channel, Charles Abani, UN resident coordinator in Ghana, said the country must find ways of becoming more resilient.
But at the same time, there's opportunity here and there's lessons. Africa needs to learn how to become more resilient in the face of these challenges. I think Ghana's own ambition for self-reliance is a model that we all need to look at. And in the aftermath of the pandemic, and again, let's quote the president, we must never be caught with our pants down again. And so these are some of the lessons that I think are coming home to us, and therefore the opportunities that we must see. Certainly the General Assembly has reaffirmed its commitment to non-aggression, to the sovereignty and rights of nations. And of course, in those difficult circumstances, war is continuing. But I think the UN has played a very pivotal role in trying to unblock supply chains and make sure that grain, fertilizer is able to reach the right places and look at how to support the whole crisis around energy as well. We have COP27 coming up where there is quite a lot of demand to ensure that the 100 billion pledge from Glasgow is met, because that is the basis upon which countries who are on the brink of breakthrough, Ghana being one, can actually make the investments that are necessary to actually drive themselves into middle income status and help the globe to achieve net zero.
We'll talk about some of these partnerships shortly, but I still just want to dwell on that document. I guess it's titled The Impact of the War in Ukraine on Sustainable Development in Africa. That's the UNDP document I'm talking about. There's another fear that Africa may still go through the quote-unquote dependency cycle. It's part of the criticisms that have faced the United Nations over the year. The fact that you've not been able to breach the North-South divide. How do you respond to such critics?
So I think that the Secretary General and the UN has called for a number of systemic level responses. One is the need to really reform the global financial architecture that we work within. As we speak, we're already predicting that next year will bring a debt crisis that has arisen from some of the impacts of COVID-19, and certainly the kind of growth that we expected on the continent has not happened. Sluggish recovery from COVID-19, impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war means that many countries are going to face debt defaults unless we review and come up with different ways of looking at how to finance the globe more fairly. We know, for instance, that when the SDRs were distributed, Africa got the least. And actually the question is, why are the countries who need this most not able to get it? Certainly the Secretary General is behind a call for a fairer financial system.
All right, UN Resident Coordinator in Ghana, Charles Obani, speaking with Blaise Suga on Foreign Affairs. Now, government missed its Treasury bills auction target for the third week running, but liquidity improved comparatively to the past 2 weeks. Now, the government secured 1.23 billion cedis from a target of 1.316 billion cedis, about 6% under subscription. Here to give us more, Patrick Agama, who is at the Republic Securities, he's the head of trading. Give us a rundown, Patrick.
Okay, good afternoon. So the government, as you said, missed its target slightly. We had the 91-day clearing at 33.3%, but bids as high as 33.85 were accepted. We had a 182-day missing. We saw it closing at 34.85%, but as high as 35.29% were accepted. The 34-day also closed at 33.47, but as high as 34.79 were accepted. The 91-day again dominated the bids for the day by 87%, whilst the 182-day and the 34-day had 11% and 2% respectively.
Well, I know the president a couple of weeks ago tried to calm the markets by saying there was not going to be a haircut. Are there still fears about a haircut, and how are those fears impacting the markets now?
Well, yes, there are still some significant level of fears about haircut on the market, and that is even factoring in the pricing of the securities on the market. We all know that the directive from SEC, that's about the mark-to-market directive, also played a role in increasing that fear on the market. People were thinking that that was the haircut before the haircut, but as explained by the SEC directive, it is not the haircut before the haircut, but the valuation model that was changed. Yeah.
Okay, and so let's turn to the stock market. How is performance on the market, and what should we expect this week?
Again, the stock market, we've seen that last week we only saw one loser, which was the new gold ETF, dropping by 17.8 Ghana cedis to close at 218.2. The market remained unchanged for last week. So as we see the new gold ETF drop, we see also the market remaining highly offered on all the equities, except BOP that has very few bids. So we expect this to continue until investors get a clear direction of where the economy is going.
Anything else you're keeping our eyes on?
For this week, yes, the government is targeting 2.06 billion in the issuance of 91-day, 182-day, and 365-day bills. This has been one of the highest targets we've seen so far in the auction. So we expect to see how investors using the liquidity that has hit the market today with interest payments that were made. We expect to see how they are able to roll over that onto the government securities.
All right,
Patrick
Edem-Agama, Head of Trading Republic Securities, appreciate your time. And that's the marketplace. Thanks for watching, everyone. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. The day's latest stories over there, as you can see, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Daryl Kwawu. We will be back same time tomorrow. Goodbye.